Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The regular meeting of the Grosse Ile Township Planning Commission will come to order. Would you all rise, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next item is the agenda. Anybody wish to change the agenda from that which was presented? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to approve as submitted.
So moved.
Support.
Motion from Raythel, support from Ranka. Call to question.
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carried. Agenda stands. Next are the minutes. We have minutes from our February 19 meeting.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
it shows me present at last meeting and I was not, so I need to be moved down to excused.
Okay, Raythel to excused.
With that modification, I'll approve the minutes from February 19th, 2025.
Support.
Motion, Kovalak, support. Raythel, call to question. All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Brian, would you make sure, please, that this gets fed back so that it gets corrected?
Absolutely. I'm taking notes.
Oh, okay, good, thank you. Next item is public comment, discussion about anything not on the agenda tonight. Any hands that want to speak to the commission? Nope, seeing no hands. We'll move on. Next item is a site plan review, West Shore Golf and Country Club. The applicant is Robert Howie, architect, 2363 West Jefferson, Trenton, on behalf of the West Shore Golf and Country Club, 2293 West River Road. Location legally are lots 3 through 9 of Golfview Estates subdivision. The common description is 2863. West Jefferson. No, the common description is a golf course, for Pete's sake. The proposed development is on the north side of the clubhouse, at the edge of the parking area. The proposal is to construct a new 120-foot by 64-foot building to house golf court storage, a small office, a bag storage area, and 2 golf simulators. The existing golf cart storage area that's immediately north of the parking area is going to be demolished. There will be 25 parking spaces which will be taken as a result of the new construction, and 25 new which will be added to compensate. The zoning is R1A, single-family residential. Under R1A, the golf club is a special land use. This is a modification to the special land use and requires Planning Commission site plan approval. Relative ordinances are Article 21, single-family residential. The process is straightforward. It's a Planning Commission review and decision. The board does not vote on this. I do expect that the Planning Commission will vote tonight to approve, deny, or table. Little background on this. A proposal for a cart storage facility was up in front of the Planning Commission back in early 2024, I think it was January, under preliminary site plan review. And at this point, it's been a while, so I'm not sure if this is the same proposal that was up in front of us before. But I would like to make sure that that gets clarified as we move forward. Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Everybody hear me okay? Yep. Good. Thank you. Make sure I'm using my mic or I'll get yelled at. So thank you for the introduction again and opening commentary. So my initial slide is always a little bit of a repeat of what the chairman just put forth, but I do want to show you an aerial photo and I can kind of talk my way through this. So this is a subject site inclusive of parking lot, clubhouse, obviously extending into the golf course and the rest of the property. The focus here this evening is on a proposed cart storage building. The current cart storage structure is right here. If you can see my cursor on the screen, more of an open air but covered type of structure. It's almost the length of the proposed building, but it is substantially smaller than the building that is proposed. And then the proposed building, as Chairman noted, is on the north side of the property over in this area here, part of the parking lot, part of the green belt that's on this side. In total, the building is identified as 7,680 square feet. Chairman already identified the proposed usage based on the floor plan that was submitted. And again, as a reminder, Planning Commission does have review and approval authority over this. So if you were to bring it to action tonight, it will be an act of your own, not a recommendation to the Township Board. So the first plan view I have up, this is the existing conditions plan. So again, here's the existing cart storage structure. This will be demolished. This is the area of the parking lot that will be removed to accommodate the proposed building over in this area, and there will be some tree removal over on the north side of the property as well. Excuse me, did I get that right? Yes. Directionally challenged, folks. And then this is a look at the full site plan. So what we have here is clubhouse building, proposed cart storage building. We have parking spaces in place of the old structure, and then some new parking spaces, some along the front, some restriped along the side in this area here. And then these spaces, I believe, would also be lost because of the building. There's a drive aisle right here. And I did zoom in on this as well, so this is a little bit easier view. So this is the proposed building. Applicant has included a dense arborvitae hedgerow, along the side here, so in between the proposed building and the neighbor, which I'll go back to my aerial real quickly. You can see they do abut a single-family dwelling immediately adjacent to that north side property line. So, and then this is that dwelling right here. This last one here, this is just a look at the actual building elevation that's proposed. When you look into the details of the materials, the building design, it very much replicates the clubhouse building itself. So it's a very nice rendition of what's on site. I would say it absolutely complements what is already on property in terms of materials and design. The project architect is in attendance tonight. I know he's got some photographs and some samples. So when we get to that, when he gets up, he can show you some of the material samples just to verify what we're already looking at here. And then the next few slides, John was kind enough to take a bunch of pictures for me. Thank you again for doing a site visit and being able to take these. So we have a number of views of the property, both on site as well as towards the abutting residents to the north. So we've got the existing cart storage structure. This is the neighbor's fence line on the lower left here, existing stands of trees. That's the fence you can just see in the foreground there. This is a view from the neighboring property towards the clubhouse and parking lot area on the left side. Right side is a look from basically the rear yard out towards West River Road. So this is a look here. You can see one of the comments that's been put forth, at least in some of the discussion. You can see there's a bit of a grade change from neighbor up to the parking lot area here on the golf club property. This is a look at the front area. So this is the existing pavement. This is a portion where some of that new parking would go up front. Obviously, you can see the river in the background. This is a look towards the front of the clubhouse, a little bit of the pavement condition. I did get a chance to drive over there today, drove around the site quite a bit with Ross, and all in all, I'd say the pavement's actually in pretty good condition. There weren't really any major potholes or areas where it's failing or crumbling. Paint striping is all certainly legible. It could probably use a refresh at some point in time, but I don't know that we need to go down that path as part of this project tonight unless commission feels otherwise. Upper right is a look at their existing waste receptacle enclosure. So they do have a wood enclosure. The receptacle is in a proper location. It is properly screened. So that was another item that was commented on in my review letter, just in terms of any potential site improvements that might be warranted as part of this project. I do think it was generally in pretty good condition. This is the kind of thing over time, there's probably some boards that they'll need to paint, might need to replace, but it didn't look to me like the whole enclosure needed to be repaired or replaced at this time. Lower left, another look from parking lot back towards the neighboring property to the north, the abutting residence. And a good look at the light fixtures. We have a couple photos that include the light fixtures, because that was another comment I had. On-site inspection, they are downward directed LEDs, so I don't expect there to be an issue with the existing lighting. If they were floodlights, or if they were something where the fixture themselves, the light source was visible, I would want to talk to you about having them replace those fixtures as part of this. I don't believe that will be necessary. That's just my opinion based on site visit. And then another look sort of just down to the right or to the east from that last picture. Again, another look at the stand of trees here. Most, if not all of these, will be coming down. Another look at the light fixture. And then I believe this is a look, again, existing stand of trees towards the front of the property. This one, I believe, is to the other direction on the left. I believe it's either
South
east
side.
or south. That's the south side. And then upper right, again, another look at the stand of trees. One of my comments when I get into my summary is I am asking the petitioner for a little bit better delineation and or confirmation of the trees that will remain. There are some screening requirements and some landscape requirements of the ordinance. They can be met by the preservation of existing trees, but I want confirmation of the trees that will remain, and this is one of those areas. That's it for the pictures. I'm going to walk through my summary. If you want me to go back to any of the pictures or any of the plan drawings at any time, please don't hesitate to stop me. So, as I sort of alluded to in the initial part of the presentation, the ordinance does give the commission the ability to require site improvements. So if there are other deficiencies, other items in need of repair, improvement, or to be brought into compliance with current standards, you do have the authority to require that. I typically would comment on things like landscaping, lighting, parking lot condition, waste receptacle enclosure condition. For the most part, I think things are generally in pretty good shape around there. Again, that's just my opinion. I'll let the commission decide for themselves. I did ask Mr. Howie to bring material and color samples for your consideration tonight, so he will present those when he gets the floor. The plan, original plan that we reviewed did not identify the required barrier-free parking spaces. Based on the number of spaces they are required to have 6. They did actually provide a revised drawing, which I believe there were handouts in front of you tonight. They were able to depict those, so that standard has been met as of this evening. So we do have confirmation that they've provided all of the required barrier-free, so that would not need to be addressed if you were to take action tonight. I mentioned earlier, we did look at the parking lot condition. Again, I don't think that there's a need for major resurfacing or repairs. Obviously, they're going to have to construct some new spaces, so they will be on site. So my hope is that it's just natural when we have situations like that. There are probably any areas that are in need of repair. They're probably going to do that as part of the project to expand and modify the parking lot anyway. But I may look to petitioner to address that a little better in terms of if they are going to resurface the entire lot, if they are going to restripe the entire lot, things of that nature. I mentioned this earlier. I really want to make sure that we get confirmation that the mature trees in the northwest portion, i.e. this area here in particular, want to make sure that that stand of trees is going to remain. I believe they are. I think we got you can kind of see the edge of it on this picture here, but there are a number of trees that are sort of in the neighboring residence, kind of in their front yard. So these are in full bloom here, but there's a number of trees in this area outside of the construction area, and I just want confirmation again to make sure that those are going to remain, both for screening for the adjacent residents as well as for the required parking lot and greenbelt plantings per your ordinance. Oops. Okay. You do have the authority. This is really the biggest one, and this is to me the biggest issue that warrants more discussion here tonight. The ordinance requires what's called a buffer zone B So your landscape ordinance has 3 levels of buffer zone, and they're intended to protect the less intensive land use from a more intensive land use. So in the case of the most intensive, like an industrial use next to a residence, a buffer zone A is required. It's a little bit wider. There's more planting requirements. There's a wall or a berm. In this case, golf course next to residence requires a buffer zone B. That is a 20-foot wide buffer with a set number of evergreen trees, deciduous trees, and shrubs, as well as the inclusion of a berm or a masonry screen wall. In this case, the petitioner is asking for modification from the full extent of a buffer zone B. Planning Commission does have the authority to modify landscape standards, but as you've noted in my review letter, and I'm going to touch upon here, I do have some concerns about in particular, the reduction in the width. Their building is proposed at a 12-foot setback, which does comply. It actually exceeds the ordinance requirement for a setback, but it's 8 feet shy of what the buffer zone requires. So in essence, this building encroaches by 8 feet into the required buffer zone. I would like to see potentially some discussion about whether that encroachment is warranted or whether we feel it should maybe be relocated. And then the number of plantings, they do have essentially the arborvitae that are proposed will provide a nice dense screen. There are 24 arborvitae that are proposed. That would be in lieu of the 12 evergreen and 12 canopy trees that are required for this stretch of buffer zone B. They do not have the shrub plantings that are required, and they do not have the berm or the screen wall requirement. So there's a few things at play here in terms of the modifications that they are asking of the commission from all of those requirements. And I can touch back on that more later if we need to, Mr. Chair. I had asked for a couple of lighting items as well. We do have some renderings and some photos of the decorative wall-mounted light fixtures, so that's good. They're pretty conventional, almost residential type fixtures. There is one, like a larger light on the east side of the building that does not fully comply with the ordinance standards. I would like to see that fixture modified. In essence, the light source will be partially visible and it will shine light more outwards than strictly downwards, pardon me. So I would like to see potentially a swap out of that, or even just the inclusion of a shield to better protect any off-site glare and making sure that we're keeping that light confined to the property. They did not include, really, it's just the wall-mounted fixture, so they didn't include a photometric plan, which would give us all of the light intensities from the existing fixtures and the proposed fixtures. You do have the ability to request and require that if you so choose, and then that way, it's something if you wanted to see that level of detail, we could evaluate it, make sure it's either in compliance with current standards, or if it's not and we find deficiencies, we could require improvements as a result of that review. And then my last comment, and this would be really if you're going to put forth a favorable decision tonight, I would like you to incorporate a condition that the applicant has to address the final engineering comments as well as any comments put forth by the fire marshal upon their respective reviews. So typically the process here has been we go through site plan review. If it's going to be approved, those are conditions. And then the next step is making sure that engineering and fire are met as part of what will lead into eventually the permit process and the construction review of the project. So that's been the standard process here, and I just would ask that you add that as a condition if you're ready to move forward tonight. All I have at this time, Mr. Chair, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Excellent job as usual, sir.
Thank you.
Questions? Mr. Kobolak, any questions?
Lighting in the back of the building, there's nothing proposed on the north side of the structure, correct?
North side, I don't believe so.
Right, because obviously that would
Yep.
impact the homeowner to the north.
Yeah, you can't, I apologize, I can't zoom in enough on this. If you can just see my cursor, so at these building entrances, this is the south facade where my cursor is, there are these decorative fixtures on each side of the doorways, and then there's nothing on the side facing the residence. I believe there are two more. This would be the west. Yes, sorry, it's on here. This would be the west entrance. And then this is the fixture I had referenced. So there's an overhead door on the east side of the building. This fixture here, which you really can't see, but that's the one that sort of has the opportunity to project light outwards. And I want to see it confined more, and I don't want, especially because we have a dwelling adjacent to the north, I want to make sure that light source is not visible for that property owner.
Right, and I don't know if I'm in agreement just yet of this, but let's say you convince the commission that they need to increase that buffer be to 20 feet. Obviously, parking spaces are obviously a commodity on the site.
Yep.
If they push their structure to the south to pick up your additional 8 feet, then that's going to take away 3, 4, 5 parking spots, correct?
So this would eat more into the drive aisle than the actual parking spaces, I believe. But yes, I mean, there still has to be parking, there still has to be circulation, so,
And then
yeah,
does
I
it-
understand the point.
So does planning commission have the purview to, let's say we think that buffer is more important than parking spots, do we have the ability to say that they can go from 160 whatever down to 154?
In general, I would say yes. The alternative is we have not been given full detailed parking calculations. We could request that of the applicant to see what's actually required, to see if there is a need to modify, or if they have excess parking already. We did not have that level of detail in this submittal. So that might be something that would be worth asking as well. If they are overparked by the book, I think we've all driven by it when they have events and understand that it's every space there is probably needed. I'm sure they'll
Absolutely.
tell you the same, but on a daily basis, probably not. So it's kind of a balancing act at that point.
No, I mean, my father-in-law was a pro there for decades, so he always dreamed to have a cart barn. So the fact that they're finally doing it's going to make him happy. But all right, that's all my comments, John.
Thank you. Mr. Raytho, any comments or questions for Brian?
I just have two, but I'm going to go a little bit deeper on what Kurt was getting at. So we know that they're short from the 20 feet that's required for the landscaping A or B,
Yep.
correct? Can you go over what else they're deficient in that as well? You said something about a barrier or other landscaping.
Yeah,
What-
absolutely. So, and I understand, I apologize, I know you
Berm
didn't get a full package. So the ordinance requirement for this stretch of property is a 20-foot width, a wall fence or berm, which in essence, is kind of intended to help screen that lower level. 12 canopy trees, 12 evergreen trees, and 47 shrubs are the planting requirements. And what they are providing in this immediate area, if you can follow the cursor, are 24 tightly spaced. Shoot, I can't read it on that one. I can't tell. They're probably 6 foot tall. I'm going to have to either dig or ask the petitioner. I think it's on here somewhere. But they're tightly spaced arborvitae, which will, again, kind of grow into like a green hedge if they plant it properly and maintain it properly. It will provide, decent screening in the long run. So,
But just so I understand, they're short the requirement of a wall
correct.
and
Or
a berm.
Correct.
Okay.
And shrubs.
And shrubs.
They don't have the shrub plantings, and technically, they are not providing, the ordinance does require the mix of evergreen and deciduous trees. So this would essentially be all evergreens in this case. And arborvitaes sometimes they're referred to as evergreen trees, sometimes they're referred to as upright evergreen shrubs. If I can find the sizes on here, that will,
I think it's 8 feet.
okay, that's a pretty good size planting start, so
Right.
thank you, Kurt, for that.
So the other thing is from the photos, and I've never looked down from there, from the parking lot down to the house, but it looks like there's quite a bit of a difference in elevation there.
John took a really good photo. This one on the bottom left here is from the residence towards the parking lot. So you can see that there is definitely some grade change in that area.
So if we look at a building not being there, the water still wherever it flows from the parking lot. I don't know if it goes to the north or if it goes, to a drain, but it goes down, right? Assuming that it goes down there, what about a drainage plan of if they put a building there now, what happens to the runoff of the building? Where does that go? Does that obviously, head to the north down into the neighbor's property at that point, or?
So that will all be part of the engineering review, and the petitioner will have to comply with your stormwater requirements, which would not allow them to drain onto the neighbor's property. So they will have to accommodate for a drainage pattern that does not impact the neighbor. They'll have to keep it on their site and flow it into drains.
Including putting drainage pipe in, right? Okay, and I guess I have one last thing. The elevation, if I look at the building, the elevation height of this building, does it match the clubhouse height?
No, let me rephrase. I don't have the height of the clubhouse building, but I do not believe it is as tall. I believe this one measured at about 18 feet to midpoint. I believe the clubhouse building is taller.
And do we know that with the elevation height of this facility, does it exceed the roof height of the neighbor's house?
I don't have that information either. I don't know how tall the neighbor's house is.
That's all I have.
Thank you, John. Mr. Ranka?
Nothing yet. I'm excited to see what the applicant has to say and what the comments are.
Okay. Mr. Isle?
We have the authority to ask that that structure be moved over adjacent to the clubhouse. As I look at that, I would see that you could have as much parking lot or more than before. And these incursions on the people that have their property there would be reduced. And it would all look like one big complex.
I mean, commission has the authority to discuss any alternatives you wish with the petitioner. Certainly, I'm sure, I know they've spent a lot of time finding the site that they believe is in, their needs. But I absolutely think it's a fair question to pose to them when they take the floor, whether there's an alternative location, because they do not meet the full buffer zone requirement.
Thank you, Bill. Mr. Boggs?
I don't have any questions for Brian at this time.
Okay, thank you. Let's hear from Mr. Howie, please. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and first of all, good evening, Commission members and Brian. It's always a pleasure to be here. Just want to say that on behalf of the West Shore folks, they're in the room, they'll be here to answer any questions as well. They're excited to finally move this project forward and get rid of the eyesore that's there right now. So I think Brian did a real thorough job with going through. So what I'd like to do is just perhaps just go through some of the review items that he identified. So the first one was the actual building and the construction materials. I'll just pull them out. I think you can see by the drawings that clearly we want to have something that's going to complement the existing structure there right now, the clubhouse. So we're going to use same brick. They're going to have same color siding, same shingle, same profile of the shingle as well, and the same trim. So we want this clearly to complement the existing clubhouse facility. Next item on there was discussion about the barrier-free parking. So we reached out to Hennessy Engineers. They've updated the site plan. Everybody should have an addendum there that indicates the 6 barrier-free spots. So that item is taken care of. Discussion about number 5. It says confirm. It is clearly our intent. We do not want to disturb. We want to maintain those existing trees on the northwest corner of the site. There'd be no reason to take that buffer out. So clearly we would keep that there. As it relates to the LED light fixture, that's over on the east side of the building. So when the cars enter or exit. So I think it's important that we keep in mind that little wall pack, first of all, it is a directional wall pack. We have no problem putting a shield on there, but we do want a little bit of light, so it's actually installed underneath the eave. So we're talking about a fixture that's literally installed 8.5 feet above the pavement. So it's going to be a directional down. So I don't see any issue with or without the shield, but if this body would like to have the shield, we'll certainly add the shield. And I think if you look just on the north side, we also indicated a large pine tree there too. Once again, trying to shield any type of light fixture or lighting from the adjacent landowner. So I believe that takes care of that issue. As far as the wall sconces,
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
once again, trying to okay. Try to make sure that the new structure complements the existing. So what we're proposing is to match the existing. And just like Brian said, that they are a residential light fixture. So again, you know, we're not building a large a warehouse where we're going to have big wall packs. It's going to look just like you'd have at home. You know, a wall sconce on each side of your garage door or each side of your front entry door. There's discussion, so I'd like to just maybe, I'll let the folks from West Shore, but Bill, you had talked about the location of this. I think it's important that we take a look. We've looked high and low, every which way we can to find out what the best location is. I think it's important everybody knows where hole number 1 is. We want to keep the carts. We want to keep the bag room. We want to keep the pro shop as close to hole number 1 as possible. So it just didn't make sense to put that on the far south side of the property. It makes sense for efficiency with the bag room, the carts, and the hole, and as well as the pro shop.
Bob, I guess I didn't make myself clear. I was talking about moving the site, but the one that the carts have now is it sort of looks like a little garage there. Take that site there and put it alongside the building. I saw enough here to say that they look so similar. If it's going to match in terms of making it whole as a complex, I thought it would be even closer and people wouldn't have to walk as far to get to what they wanted to do.
Yeah, please continue with why is the location where it's at?
So I can address that. Mario Ferrante with West Shore Country Club. So we've had numerous people on the site, including Bob, to review and survey the site. That was the location that we picked that best suited for our parking and for our view. You know, we also have a concern of our view of our golf course, and that was the best logistics for our golf course and our pro shop in which it could be located. There were 3 sites that were looked at, which one of the sites was one of the ones. Wasn't feasible for the traffic in and out. And also, you'll notice what you don't have on here is the grade survey. The grade survey falls dramatically east, not north or towards the neighbor's property. The grade of the parking lot in all West Shore falls directly east towards number 18 and towards our practice facility and towards, we have a natural buffer area when you come off from that shed that the fall and the pitch goes directly to that natural area. The natural area that you referred to, sir, would fall right on top of our putting green, our practice facility. That would not be a natural area. The biggest reason that location was picked was because it's the least intensive grade situation we can find on West Shore for ourselves and for the neighbor. Because it goes to a natural swell that's already there. That's a low point and it doesn't affect the golf course or the neighbor. And that's why the spot was picked. That was the number 1 reason.
Okay, let's take the question one step further. Why didn't you move it 10 or 12 feet to the south?
Well, we could have, but we were concerned about your parking criteria. You guys, I've been before you before. You guys are pretty hefty in the parking. And quite honestly, West Shore has quite a few activities. We have at least once a month, large invites, large match plays. We have large member invites, and moving it would drastically hurt our parking situation, you know, and we don't want to be parking cars across the street on the road, and we try to avoid that at all possible, but sometimes that has to happen, and we just get a lot of cars during those invites.
Okay, so parking is the main reason. And
Absolutely.
Did you consider using the space to the south that was originally for the rowing facility? And
we
you have,
did. We-
you have
we-
ample, in
we do
fact,
not-
parking in that area, you're actually closer to your front door than you are all the way over here to the far side.
That abuts to our kitchen, and our back patio area is nowhere near the pro shop, nowhere near our service, nowhere near our golf clubs. That would cause an incredible harm to our golf club. It's just not logistically feasible.
Well, I think that is something this planning commission will have to decide.
You decide that, I understand that, but for us, that's where our kitchen, our patio, our membership, our ladies' locker room, our men's locker room is. It has nothing to do with golf on that side.
No, don't put the facility over there, put the parking there. Move the building 10 or 20 feet to the south so that you're not infringing on the neighbor. You're not coming in with a 20-foot
Eliminate
buffer
those parking
variation.
spaces.
And put it here?
And move it in.
Eliminate those parking
Save
spaces.
that buffer's already there. Take the property you've got to the south and put parking there. And you've got your 25 spots, life is good, you don't affect the neighborhood.
Eliminate these parking spaces there and push the building over.
And then where's that parking go?
To the south.
We have parking to the south. It's already butts to where the rowing club is.
You've got a whole vacant parcel there, which, if, as I recall, was originally for the,
We don't own that, sir. That's
Rowing club.
owned by the rowing club. We do not own that spot. That parcel sitting, we are at the end of our line of that parking, if I could show you if you don't mind. We do not own, there's a 6-foot easement right here. We have an easement from right here for our sprinkle system that runs in here. This is owned by, past this line is owned by the rowing club. It's not owned by us.
The site plan reflects that it's part of your property, so that's why there's confusion.
Okay, I guess, I'm sorry about that, but maybe that's an old site plan or whatever, but we don't own that property, sir. The rowing club owns that property. That was sold to the rowing club, 2019?
long time ago.
Yeah, 2019.
And Mr. Chair, if I can just respond there. So we talk about the buffer, the 12-foot versus the 20-foot, and then the plantings that are associated with that buffer. To put 12 pine trees and 12 deciduous trees, we just didn't feel that deciduous trees were going to provide ample buffer for it. That's why we provided all 24 arborvitaes all the way down there. I think that if anything, they probably went a little more overboard. We included them, 20-some feet west of the building and as well as east of the building, just to make sure they had proper screening. As far as the discussion about the water and stormwater, obviously, once we get into the construction and engineering, looking at this right here, I'm sure there's going to be a gutter system with downspouts, and the downspouts would tie somewhere into either a swale to direct the water away from there or underground to a storm sewer. But that's something that we'd work out in the next phase.
Okay, additional comments before we go to the commission?
Nope.
Okay. Questions from the commission. Let's start with Eric.
No, I mean, the big one is, right, it was pointed out, and it's what we're talking about, right, is the buffer, right? Is that enough buffer? It's obvious it's a big natural buffer right now. It's twice as large as that with already very, very mature trees. So that's the case in point. So my question, or what I had asked for, was to listen to what they had to say, and was why they chose the location they did. So I understand from a golf operations standpoint why they did that. Is there any input from the neighbors that we've received?
I'm here if you want me to.
We will call on public comment, and after the planning commission has finished their sweeping through, then we'll have public comment. Brian, were there any letters received?
I don't believe, Ross didn't give me any. I don't believe any were. I do know, as just noted, the owner of the abutting residence is here tonight. I believe that you did come in and look at the plans and speak with Ross. So, yeah, they've been involved in this process since it's been submitted.
We will hear from here after we get through the commission. Any more?
That's it for me.
Mr. Howe? Dan?
Yeah, I had a few comments on the buffer zone. I guess the buffer zone is my largest concern. I know graphically the arborvitaes are placed and appear to fill it in really well, but I think in reality they won't provide quite that much of a buffer. 12, I mean, replacing, with 8-foot arborvitaes, replacing 12 canopy trees and 12 evergreen trees is I don't know is necessary in equal trade, even though it is a shrub for a tree. And there's no shrub. I'm really not concerned about the shrubs. I'm more concerned about separating this is a relatively large building, and it's close to the property line. I know that there is some shrubs, or I think there are shrubs along the neighbor's property, but we shouldn't count on the neighbor's shrubs for providing that screen. I think it needs to be provided by the country club. And right now, I feel just having one straight row of arborvitaes is a little bit weak. It would be a lot better if they were staggered and provided more of a barrier than a straight line. There's going to be gaps between these arborvitaes until they're very, very mature.
I'd like to comment on that just for a moment. So the pictures really don't indicate, there's a tremendous amount of trees back there as there is. It's very thick back there right now. And of course, our intention is to take out the least amount of trees as possible, especially the big evergreens that are there. In terms of staggering, we don't care. Quite honestly, we have maintenance people that landscape that work for West Shore. That's what they do for a living. We have the ability to plant and do what's necessary there, whether they're staggered, whether they're a straight line, or whether we integrate the arborvitaes with the current shrubbery that's there now and not take it down, because we have things that are 14, 15, 16 feet high there that we'd rather not take down, right? That already has a very large natural buffer. Our intention is to take out as least amount of buffer as possible and decide that building right up against that buffer and then plant what's necessary inside. It's hard to look at a drawing, but there's a lot of trees there.
Brian, can you bring up a picture up of that fence row there?
I
recall
Brian,
not
there's one
seeing-
picture in there that shows exactly the trees that are coming out.
Yeah, I don't recall seeing any trees or shrubs directly adjacent to that fence that are on the country club property. Yeah,
Here's a look. If you look at the left side of this photo, this is generally,
now all those trees will be gone, correct? That's where the building is, correct?
Yes. The ones that are, yeah.
I think 100% of those will be gone. I mean, we're talking 12 feet. So if you look over to the right, all the current foliage or shrubs are on the neighbor's property on the neighbor's side of the fence. The only thing that I see, one tree and a utility pole that is on the country club side of the fence. So all the trees except for the ones in the very front of the site will be gone. So currently, other than arborvitaes, there will be no shrubs or trees in that buffer zone. If I'm interpreting this correctly.
That's correct.
That it, Dan?
That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Rathel?
A few comments. You got a great architect doing it, and I'm saying
you,
that
sir.
with all sincerity. You need this, okay?
We do,
You don't have enough parking as it exists.
correct.
But with that said, I think I probably have come to my position on this. There's a overlay that we deal with. You're on the planning commission.
I am.
And we deal with an overlay called R1E. And that requires a certain amount of width for a new lot or a new development. And we regularly turn down residents because they don't have it, whether it fits the neighborhood or don't. And if it's important to them, they go back and they figure out how to do it, buy land adjacent to them. But if they really need it, they go do it. And we have cases where they come back for that. I'm in 100% in favor of this project. But we have a 20-foot setback for a reason. and this doesn't meet it.
Well, in fairness, the setback is met. It's the landscape 20 feet, the buffer,
And that's,
which you guys have say on that.
right, okay.
And we're saying to you, we will plant what you need to plant. That's not
Well,
an
but
issue for
we're
us.
talking about a wall, or we're talking about a berm, we're talking about another 8 feet. I mean, that's a lot of space, right?
Well, I think the berm, honestly, guys, the berm would cause harm to the neighbor.
Well, I'm just saying that, you know, it doesn't have to be a berm, it could be a wall. There's requirements in landscaping to do that, and it's there for a reason, right? So I thought this was gonna be a slam dunk, and John said it earlier. I look at the site plan and I look at your property line going all the way back, right, to the south, which you say now is owned by the boat club or the rowing club.
It's not, yeah, it's owned by them.
Yeah,
It's not our property.
right. So you look at that here and say, putting your parking over there, move the building to the south, and, you know, we're good. But I just don't feel, unless the neighbor comes up and says, hey, this is a great project, no problem. I mean, it's gonna be screened. I've been living in a golf course for a long time. The project as it's presented is asking for a variance that I don't really feel comfortable with. And I'm more than happy to adjust our parking requirements, to eliminate the needs to be able for this project to go forward.
So we don't have a problem. If you guys will work with us on the parking spots, we don't have a problem with it. It's just, listen, when we're looking at ordinances, parking is like the number one indicator when you're looking at an ordinance. So when you come in front of a planning body, you deal with the things that are in chronological order of importance, which
Right,
parking is
right.
important. We are removing a hideous
And the reason,
structure. We're removing a hideous structure and replacing it with something that's beautiful for the neighborhood
yeah,
and the area.
but stop, because the hideous structure replacing isn't next to a neighbor, right? I know where it's at. It's not, so for you, it may be hideous, for a neighbor, they don't even see it. The parking, the reason I'm in favor of addressing the less parking is you don't have enough parking now. Okay, it's just like everybody has to deal with it. You get outings on a Monday, and you know it's cars all over, and people, and these, you know, the different events, and we figure it out. You know, so I think that eliminating some of the parking requirements, but having that back farther to the south, is something I'd feel more comfortable with, and be able to say, you know what,
Yeah, we can work, gentlemen.
We could eliminate the
Yeah.
6 parking spots on the north side and then push, if this body insists on having that 20-foot buffer, if we eliminate those 6 parking spots on the north side, pull the building over 8 feet, it would accomplish what we're trying to accomplish.
I would be in favor of that, Bob. I mean, I think that, and I can't say no to it because you meet our requirements, right? So, I would be okay with that if something like that happened.
Thank you, John. Kurt?
Brian, can you pull up the site plan again? Can you, and I guess similar to what John said, you know, when I looked at this and we're talking about 20 feet, right now it's depicted, I'm sorry, can you get closer, right in front of the structure? So go to the,
Not you, Brian, the screen.
Yeah, that's the best I've got.
that's it, you can't blow that up? No?
It's blown up already.
Okay.
Here's the, that's
So if you, no, you just went smaller. So if you take a look at the south side of the building and you take a look at what's proposed as parking lots or parking spaces, those aren't parking spaces. There's no way you're gonna have someone park their car right there. So I count,
drive aisle.
No,
yeah, it's a drive aisle,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
That's a
we
driveway.
are removing those parking spaces.
Right.
To
So
make a
you-
maneuvering lane for the
Yeah,
for
so
the
you,
vehicles.
so you take a look at that and you say, if you move parking spots right now, you know, let's say they're 10 feet wide, if you push that structure to the south, you're gonna pick up your 8 feet relatively easy, right? I mean, that's an easy one,
correct.
right? The question is whether or not, and John's right, you don't have enough parking regardless. If you have a big event, you have an invitational, they're parking on the west side of West River anyways.
That's
I mean, that's where they're gonna go. I am a little confused by what is owned to the south because the way this is depicted, I understand that might have been done incorrectly, but the area that's kind of looks like that's like a berm area or a tree lined area, are you telling us that your property to the south stops right past your parking spaces?
Yes.
That's where it stops?
Yes.
Okay.
No, I'm telling you that there's a 6-foot easement on the other side of that parking lot.
Right, but that's where it stops.
That's where it stops.
Yeah, you only have 6 feet.
Yep.
All right, so again, my thought is, we want to make sure that the neighbor has enough bermed area so that they're not impacted. I'm more than happy to waive, 4 or 5 or 6 spots, shift that to the south, create the 20-foot, make sure, like you said, you have a lot of landscapers on site, right?
Correct.
You're going to buffer to the best of your ability, make sure that the neighbor's not impacted.
Correct.
You get your structure, and then, when you have overflow parking, guess what? You're going to have overflow by another 5 cars somewhere else, right? John?
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, can I just jump in real quickly? So I do think, I'm looking at this, I think there's a way, I don't think you have to lose any parking. What do you think, and Bob, I'll defer to you a little bit here to take a look at it. We're kind of doing this on the fly, but what if you just made that drive aisle one way and narrowed its width? You've got excess drive aisle width. Pull the building over for the excess width. I mean, you could do a one-way drive aisle at 15 feet. You've got a 26-foot wide aisle. So you can gain 11 feet. You could actually exceed the buffer zone requirement, pull the building to the south, not lose any parking.
I mean, that's a possibility. I think, though, we need to keep in mind, too, that we're going to have carts that are going to be going back and forth in that maneuvering lane there. So I think if it was a couple spots, and perhaps we can pick up a couple spots that are up along West River.
Yeah,
to
maybe.
offset
Okay.
that.
Are we ready to go to the, let's go to the public now.
Okay.
A hand back there? Yes. Please come on up, introduce yourself. Welcome to the Planning Commission.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. Thank you for your time. My name is Dr. Margaret Lutzick. I am here not only on my own behalf, but on the behalf of another neighbor who could not attend tonight. In preparing for this meeting, I have consulted legal counsel to ensure my concerns align with Groseal's zoning laws and long-term planning standards. The applicant is proposing a 7,680 square foot storage building that will stand 18 feet tall, a large and highly visible structure along West River Road, a prominent and carefully preserved part of Groseal's waterfront. The request also includes a variance to reduce the required 20-foot setback to only 12 feet, which is both unnecessary and unjustified. Variances should not be granted for convenience, and the applicant has not demonstrated any legitimate hardship that warrants violating township zoning standards. The required setback exists to protect adjacent properties and to ensure new developments remain consistent with Groseal's planning principles. Additionally, the structure will house lithium battery-powered golf carts, which pose a significant fire risk if not properly managed. Reducing the setback places the neighboring properties at greater risk, and before any approval is considered, a fire suppression system should be required. Beyond the legal and safety concerns, this project raises environmentally and aesthetic issues that directly affect the character of our island community. Given its proximity to delicate waterfront areas, poor planning could disrupt drainage, increase runoff, and negatively impact the surrounding landscape. Furthermore, its highly visibly along West River Road makes it even more critical that it aligns with the existing architecture of West Shore Country Club, which primarily features brick and vinyl siding. Any new structure built in this location must match those materials to maintain the character and visual harmony of one of Groseal's most historic corridors. A large, out-of-place storage building that does not fit with the surrounding structures would diminish the carefully preserved aesthetic of our community and negatively impact property values. Groseal has long taken pride in maintaining its architectural integrity, small-town charm, and commitment to responsible planning. As stewards of this community, the Planning Commission has a duty to uphold zoning laws, protect public safety, and environmental responsibility. I urge you to reject the setback variance, ensure that any new development matches the surrounding buildings with brick and vinyl siding, so it blends seamlessly into the existing landscape. This isn't about stopping development, but about ensuring it aligns with Groseal's zoning standards, safety properties, and commitment to maintaining the beauty of our waterfront. Thank you. And now that I've been standing here and sitting here, they raised the the number 1. Since they raised it, I have flooding in my backyard now. Also, if you look back to the history of Groseal, there is a brook that runs on their first hole that goes all the way through my backyard into the neighbor's backyard.
Could you speak into the mic, please? The people in.
If you go back in history, there is a brook that goes from that first tee that they raised that now causes flooding in the back, that goes through my backyard into the neighbor's backyard and then out to the river. It goes all the way down because if you go on the property, there is a brook that goes this way, one onto my property and through West Shore. That's always flooded and has problems, and it hasn't been dug up in years, and it's actually backed up onto all the properties all the way down. That has not been addressed. Then, if we want to go one step further, that's not, and tell me if it's inappropriate, but the property has been sold on the opposite side all the way down. There's buildings that are up there where they store a lot of equipment. So if that gets built, those condos, where are those other structures going to go? Where's all that material going to go? Next door to me in this large building? That's huge, which houses more than enough golf carts. So that's something to think about in the future because that's another project that they have. So thank you, and I just wanted to say that about the flooding because it's really been upsetting.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Okay. I haven't given my comments yet, or my questions from the first round. I'd like to get some clarification. Brian, what exactly is the peak height of this building? Is 18 feet to the midpoint, or is it to the peak?
That's the midpoint measurement, Mr. Chair.
And what's the peak?
I have to see if it's on here. We may have to look to Mr. Howie to address that.
Mr. Howie, can you address that, please?
Is it on here? Oh, yeah, there it is. Mr. Chair, it's 18'2" to midpoint. Peak would be another 8'3", so 26'5", about 20, just under 26 and a half to the peak.
Okay. All right, let's step through this. First, when I look at this, I see this is very satisfying project if you're a member of the West Shore Golf Club. Okay, you've got a perfect world. You get rid of the eyesore, which you currently have. You open up that area so that there's a nice view of the golf course, and you push this building over so that you keep your parking, and you sacrifice the buffer zone and the character of the house to the north. So it's all great for you guys. I'm not so sure it's great for the neighbor to the north. I think about this. You've got a 120-foot wall that neighbor in their backyard is going to look at. Now look at the architecture on that side of the building. I didn't see nice peaks like you have. On your side of the building, where you look at, you have nice peaks and architecture. The back side, it's a bare roof. A 30 by 120-foot roof line with and four little windows. Okay, that's not much when you consider the fact that you put all the benefit on your side and nothing on the opposite side. I think that's an issue. I also have an issue with the fact that as you look at this, and why I see you put in your drawings sewer piping. You're going to run a 6-inch line over, and you're going to put water in that building. Okay. Now I think that with simple logic, it doesn't take an engineer to tell you that when you put a roof line, that's split in the middle, 30 foot by 120 foot, that water is going to go somewhere. Okay. And it can't go into an area that you're proposing that's so narrow. Okay, that is flat out, that's inadequate. Okay, and it doesn't take an engineer to tell you to put in an underground line there, and I think that should have been shown. So fundamentally, I have a real problem with where this building is at. I think it needs to move, and I think the building needs to be upgraded on that side for the reasons I've described. I want to make sure I understand about the grade level. That's important. There's a 2.5-foot grade level that I see between the parking where the parking lot's at and where the grade is when you go down the hill, up next to where the neighbor's fence is at, roughly 2.5 feet. if I read your drawings correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, please. Okay, what your drawing said was that you're gonna put in a brick wall. Okay, and I assume that means that there's gonna be a step down from the building, it'll drop 2.5 feet, and then you're gonna level out all that area behind it?
So, Mr. Chair, if you take a look at the east elevation there, so the brick ledge would step down to comply where the grade that goes down.
Okay, but the grade is going to be, what it looked like in your finished drawing was it was gonna be horizontal, basically. You're not leaving a steep slope, you're bringing it down and bringing it to grade.
Along the property line. We have to match the property line. Whatever the existing grade is along there, Hennessy Engineers hasn't gone through and completed a complete detailed engineering yet. I mean, this is conceptual for site plan approval, but if there's drainage, I mean, clearly there's going to be storm drainage that's going to be required. That's not going to be an issue. They're not going to, I mean, number one thing is you can never drain on the adjacent landowner. We know that, you know that, everybody knows that. It would never get past the building department.
Okay, what about the roof architecture?
I mean, if this body seems to think that we need to add a couple of reverse gables, I'll say call them eyebrows off that along the north side, we could certainly do that.
Now, I put it in this context. If it were your house next door, what would you want to see? Would you want to see a bare 30 by 120-foot roof, or would you want to see some architecture? I think the answer is obvious. That's my opinion. Brian showed a picture of the trash bin, okay, but the picture got cut. When I looked at the trash bin, the wood siding on the north side is basically partially collapsed. That section, that portion of it at least needs to be rebuilt. The other portion that Brian showed in the pictures is just fine. So I would encourage you to consider that.
I would think there would be no problem with the West Shore taking care of properly maintaining. If they needed to reside that would not be a problem.
Okay.
So if I may,
And
we would have no problem if we insist that we need that 20-foot buffer. We can push it over the additional 8 feet to get a full 20-foot clear buffer. That'll comply. If they would like to see additional shrubs along there, we could put yews and shrubs up alongside the building if we think it's necessary.
Yeah, what the requirement is to comply to the ordinance.
Right.
Okay, that's what you're hearing, at least I think, from this commission tonight. But you know, I want to come back to this parking question. You know, the West Shore guys are smart business people. Okay, you sold that property to the rowing club. Go cut a deal. Get an easement so that you can park over there when you have overflow conditions. Make it, you know, you guys can work something out. It doesn't have to be as black and white as what you guys are presenting it. Plus, you know, you say that you have a parking problem and you reference a parking standard, but from what Brian tells me, we don't know what the parking standard is because it's never been calculated, as far as I know.
Yeah, I've not seen a fully detailed calculation. At its base, there is a part of the requirement is based on the number of golf holes. That part's easy to figure out, but the rest of it is based on square footage of clubhouse. It's based on number of employees, et cetera. So the applicant would have to dig deeper and give us an indication of what the ordinance requires in terms of parking.
Well, I think that's, if we're going to use that as a justification, then I think we ought to know the numbers.
Well, gentlemen, you know, what we're asking for is a recommendation, and we are up here, and we've repeated ourselves, we are here to 100% comply. If you're going to give us a consideration on the parking, we have no issues. I believe every request you've made.
I haven't heard anybody up here say they wouldn't
Other than
consider that.
Other than John's comment about the back, which, if we're going to put that type of intense screening on the back, if I can draw your attention, could you show the neighbor's house just for a moment? I wish the neighbor was here. Show the neighbor's house in relationship to the thing. Could you put that on there for me? The neighbor's house in relationship. Let me just show you something, please. The back of the neighbor's house is the garage. The cart barn is set back behind her garage, from her house, from her window.
Does that work?
Whether I move it back 8 feet, 6 feet, 7 feet, she's not going to see anything. because it's from the corner of her garage, it's set all the way back in the corner. From her backyard, if she's standing in the backyard, me moving it over 8 feet is not gonna make a difference. We don't have an issue with it. We'll buff it, we'll screen it, we'll do whatever you
Yeah,
want.
get up to the
But
microphone.
the view for her, it changes whether I move it 8 feet or not, does not change at all.
Okay, we need to, okay.
So, you know, it's,
Well, good, it sounds like we're in agreement then.
we are 100% in agreement, and we're gonna
Okay.
screen and do whatever, as long as, when we come back to you, if you give us the recommendation and the consideration, the approval, that you're not gonna hit us with a parking requirement that we've removed the spaces.
Brian,
And-
do we have discretion on that?
And then, excuse me, just for a moment, in the preliminary discussion that we had too, I want you to know that in the preliminary discussion, which things change and evolve as you go through, but the preliminary discussion we had, parking was a major source for the planning commission when we did our preliminary. So that's why a lot of focus was put on that. Okay, things have changed, the neighbor doesn't like it, I understand. We would have started with the 20-foot. We would have started with that, but we just didn't want to upset planning commission on the parking regulation. Okay, so now that that's not an issue, I think we can all agree that what we've brought to you is a beautiful plan that fits your ordinance, that we will be 100% compliant. We're asking for a vote of recommendation or a vote to move forward, and we will comply. And as long as you give us the offset on the parking, there will be no issues.
Well, and I guess through John, the question is, we don't know what the parking is right now. So again, when I say reduce it by 6 spaces, I don't have any problem doing that, but I'm reducing it from a number I don't even know. So again, I have no problems when you come back, but it'd be good to know what that number is in concept before we say, we're not gonna touch parking at all, because you could come back and say there's 130 spots here and you need 180. Right? So again, if you had that as part of this plan, we could answer it tonight. I don't know if we can answer it tonight. That's all. And Brian, I don't know if there's discretion or not per John's question.
Yeah, I'm looking through right now, Mr. Chair. I mean, part of the issue is we don't know what the baseline is. I don't know how much is required. And I'm gonna go back to what I said earlier. I don't know that you need to lose parking to move this building. It does not appear that you do. So I don't know why we're talking about losing more parking.
I
I
think
think you're
that's an
focusing
option.
on the wrong things.
This will have to be studied further for sure. But things that I definitely want to see, I'd like to see a correct site plan that shows the property line where it's supposed to be to the south. That's rather important. I think that, we needed more information on the light fixture, Brian?
I feel better about the light fixture, Mr. Chair. I think there should
Scratch
be
that?
an added shield on that easterly light fixture so that the light source is not visible.
That's correct.
Okay, the trash corral gets noted as being fixed. Did you need the photometric plan?
That's entirely up to the commission. If you feel that level of detail is necessary, you can request that.
Okay, we'll see whoever makes a motion can decide if they want that. Okay, and I'd like to at least see some recognition up front of how the water is going to be managed, even without the detailed Hennessy engineering. Put in gutters, put in a storm drain. Common sense. Those are the things that I was most interested in. So I'll stop at this point and ask for other comments.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think with the parking, and again, we don't have that, right? But if it comes back and you're required to have 180 spots and you only have 120 now, it does, okay, it's like,
Right, we're darned if we do, and we're darned if we don't.
Right,
I
so
mean-
I don't want to get hung up on the amount of spots, right? Because you have the amount of spots that you have. Right, so what we're doing is we have the number you have, not a number that we're required to have. You have what you have. We can't do anything about that.
I don't know how the parking calculation changes where what we're doing.
It doesn't matter to me what a parking calculation comes up with, okay? Because, again, you have what you have. There's nothing that we can do. I think that, unless someone else has any comments on what I hear everybody saying and how I put it is that the setback has to be required. You guys don't have a problem with that.
Nope.
If you need more parking, because you need more parking, figure out how you can get more parking.
Correct.
Okay, John came up with a good idea. You can go to the boat club and say, hey, we want to make, we'll rent some space for you. You could do that deal. I mean, that's an easy deal. If you want to, I'm not gonna tell you, you have to do that,
I'll figure
right?
it out, John.
Okay,
I'll
yeah, I'm
figure it
not-
out, John.
I'm not gonna tell you.
We can figure that out.
John, you're right, I can do that deal.
Right. John brings up a good point about, the architect design of the back of the building. That's easy to do. The lighting's fine. It's going to be a beautiful building. I have no doubt about that. It's going to match the historical value of your club. No one loves that club more than you guys, right? I mean, it's you guys. That's your club. So I don't have any issues of moving this forward tonight, okay, with what we just talked about, unless there's others that have, concerns that they want a table.
We would like to see a vote, and if you have to put conditions, obviously there's conditional approval, which moves, as
Yeah.
your planner said, your normal sequence of events is that you make the conditions and it moves over to engineering and building, and we're gonna comply with all engineering and building, grade, engineering, building, architectural requirements. We're just looking for the approval, subject to your conditions.
I think given the scope, John, of the things that have to be changed here, this needs to come back and we need to see the final layout and all the details, just like we got tonight, but that meet the requirement. I can't see delegating this degree to the administration to be able to manage.
Yeah, and that's fine with me too. And I don't think you guys
I would
have
actually
a
like,
big problem. I think you'd like to vote tonight, but if we, on our drawings here, we show you own property, right? We don't know, but I think what John's asking for, and I don't have a problem, you guys don't have a problem either, of just going back, updating everything, put everything together that we talked about, come back, we'll get together quick,
we would ask respectfully for a roll call vote, just for conditional approval. If you guys want to put the conditions in, we
We'll
would
see who makes
respectfully-
we'll see who makes a motion.
Yeah.
Kurt, what's your thoughts?
I think it makes more sense for you to come back once all these drawings are redone, because then it's going to be really easy, right? And the reason why I say that, let's say Mr. Howie depicts the backside of this building and puts those inverse eaves up there. That's going to make Mr. Schweikert happy, right? It's one less thing that he's got to worry about. He doesn't see that today. Again, the way it's depicted isn't correct. I think all those issues John just raised, I think you could do it, bring it back as quickly as we can get you back on the agenda, and everybody at this commission, I'm thinking, is going to say, looks great, right? So again, if you want a conditional you want right now, you might have a few people that say no, just because they don't have it in front of them. I think if you put that together, and John, you put them on the agenda right away, with updated plans, I think it's a little easier.
And Kurt, thank you for that. Would it be fair to ask the commission just to do this, is that once we come back, that we just stick with these topics that have been talked about tonight and no additional? Whatever you guys have asked, a recommendation, we make it on the drawing, we come back, we represent it to you with your conditions met. Can we ask for a vote that evening?
From my standpoint, and I'm not talking for this, John, but I'm going to say we're not going to raise anything new. There's nothing else that we're going to raise.
Thank you.
I mean, the 20-foot buffer is the biggest thing that I have, because it satisfies the neighborhood. And if we move that building, 10 feet to the south, I have no problems with that. So that's the biggest issue for my standpoint.
And I feel the same way. I'm not. There's nothing else that I'm holding back that we're going to bring up, to move forward.
I'd like to comment on that parking again. As I'm listening to what John and Kurt have said, the clarification of that situation might be helpful. There might not be any issue with moving the building. That isn't what you brought it here for. But there might be some kind of other indication for public safety or something that would merit review. I'm not trying to do anything here to hinder you. But we don't know the answer to that question, and I think it's a significant one. You were asking a moment ago about if you give me a list, will that be final? I'm just making that point from my point of view, that I'd put that on the list.
Okay. Dan, what do you think down there?
I still feel, I think there's a lot to be corrected here, at the current time. We have the 20-foot buffer, how the landscapes can be handled, because a 20-foot spacing alone is not a sufficient buffer. There's a certain amount of landscaping too that determines that buffer. We also, it'd be nice to see an updated site plan. The township requires individual people putting additions in their houses to have up-to-date site plans. I think a country club should have up-to-date site plan also. Parking calculations. Parking calculations are important to the planning commission, and parking calculations are one of the first things we look at on all projects. And I think to come forth to the planning commission with no parking calculations is a deficiency, and I think that needs to be looked at also. And far as lighting to the site, I don't, all the lighting, especially if we get the 20-foot buffer, all the lighting seems relatively far away from the neighboring property. So lighting is really not a concern of mine. I think photometric would be more than what's necessary for the small lights that are mounted on the building. That's all the comments I have.
Okay. Mr. Ranka?
Yeah, I mean, overall, I think this is a good project. The architect it already matches the clubhouse. John said it right. You guys are the ones who care most about the club. Obviously, the whole community does because we drive by and we see it. But, overall, this looks like the right project. I do want to see the full setback. I think I'm in agreement with everyone there.
Okay. Thank you. The neighbor referenced a concern about the work area that you guys have over on the far north side, and whether you would ever have any remotest intention of putting that in and around this particular facility. That was a concern that she raised.
No, sir, this is a cart barn. We have a need for a cart barn. There's an existing cart barn. It's about the same amount of carts. We have to move it from one site to another and cover it.
So there's absolutely, okay, so
There's not enough-
positively, there's no fear that should be held with that.
You look at the site plan, there's not enough room to do anything. There's a couple offices and it's gonna be filled with carts.
And the building's not gonna be tall enough. We try to keep the building down so comply with the other building. In order to get that equipment in there, we'd have to have really high ceilings.
No, I know the answer to the question before I asked, but I wanted to make sure that you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
For
do. Yes, and
For sure.
there's been a lot of question about the height. I mean, the
Yeah.
Colonial next door to us, her house was.
All in all, from my perspective, that will be a really nice building, okay?
Thank you.
Yes, it's large, but that's okay. It's serving a function. You put it in compliance with the ordinance, life is good,
Okay.
okay?
We're in.
That's all it takes.
All right, thank you.
All right, so are we ready for a motion?
Mr. Chair, could I just jump in again? And I hate to belabor this point. I would like, if possible, for the commission to add to one of the points that Dan brought up. So the buffer zone isn't just the width. I think we're all clear the 20-foot needs to be provided, but there is the wall berm or fence requirement, and then there's also the planting requirement. So I guess I would just like, if we can get some, I don't want to talk about this all night, but if there's some direction commission can provide to the petitioner so that when they go back and revise the drawings, we don't have to bring up a new issue or skip over something.
Yeah, it's a good question. So from a consensus standpoint, I'm not in favor of a wall or berm.
Okay.
20 feet and, good number of plantings.
Thank you.
That's just me. I don't know if anyone else wants to add or subtract
Other
to
thoughts
that.
on that?
Eric, what'd you just say?
I'm not in favor of a wall or a berm. I am in favor of 20 feet and then the appropriate number of plantings.
Landscaping. So you'd rather have it landscaped than
Walled
walled?
off or bermed. That's right.
I also support having more of a natural barrier, not having a fence or a berm there. I like to see a natural barrier there with trees, so it looks more like a woods next door, giving separation between the residents and the new large building.
We would like the same thing.
It's basically attempting to duplicate what's there now,
All right, and we have staffing that can handle that on site.
okay?
That's not a hardship to us.
All right, so there's some guidance.
Can I also, and I'm really sorry, Mr. Chair, but I want to make sure we get this so the petitioner comes back with a clean slate. With the increase in the width, if possible, I would like to see you clarify the trees that are going to be preserved. And I think there's actually the potential with the extra width, you may not have to take down all of those trees along that north property line. So I'm encouraging you as the township planning consultant, it's up to these folks, but I'm encouraging you to retain as many of these mature plantings as you can.
That's to our best interest. We would want to do that.
It'll help protect the neighbor a little better, and I don't want to see mature trees, very, very large evergreens have to be removed and then replaced with 8-foot arborvitaes.
Well, if we don't have, and if it works out that way, Brian, if it works out that way, the neighbor wouldn't see anything. I mean, it'd be totally blinded out, right?
Well, that would make you guys great neighbors.
Yeah, exactly.
But Brian, we can ask for like a landscape plan
Yeah.
for that north side, that
Yeah,
20 feet.
I'd like to see the landscape plan and/or, your limits of something that depicts the
We can do
protection
that.
measures for
The
those
civil
extra-
engineers has gone out there and they've identified the trees, so they have that information.
like a tree preservation plan.
If we
Incorporate
can
that
keep
into
'em-
your landscape.
If we can keep them, we'll
will.
absolutely keep them.
Brian, what scale is the landscape plan?
Scale?
Yeah,
The drawing?
I'm just indicating that it seems like it'd be a very small scale. It would be helpful if it was a little bit larger.
I mean, it's fine.
Like, for example, my example,
It's fine. I mean, isn't.
I can do a partial plan that's like 1 to 20.
because my
If that-
example is like, it's 12 foot wide and it's showing an arborvitae fills the space. And in reality, that's not an arborvitae is not gonna fill the 12-foot space in reality.
Yeah, I think, Bob, maybe if you zoom in, blow up the actual buffer
Along the
area
property line, we certainly could.
and retain and preserve and protect everything that you can, and then supplement whatever you cannot. I guess that would be that's my opinion. I don't want to put words in.
Well, and I think too, this is gonna be important, I think this is gonna be important, what he's saying, because, if we don't require, and you don't wanna have a walled berm, okay, that is required, right? If we're gonna remove that, then that's gonna be, you know, I guess a variant wouldn't be a variance, it would be, you know, yeah, right, it's discretionary. So if you guys come back and you have a really, you know, nice landscape plan that shows what you're putting there with that setback, without any of that, and it's really detailed and we understand, it's like, okay, that's great, we see it, and, you know, let's do it, and it's not, you know, an issue.
Yeah, I think that's the screening would be best for both parties.
Yes.
No doubt about it.
Oh, yeah, and that's why,
It's the
and
golf
I
course
think
if
that's
it's
why
an error.
Eric said it, and I would agree that, you know, we're not worried about following it to that letter of a berm, because you guys could make it look even better without it, so.
Yeah, keep in mind how simple your landscape plan gets if you keep those big trees there.
That's
I mean-
fantastic.
Becomes almost a non-issue.
All right, so we can have this done with you guys within 2 weeks or so. How quick can you guys get us back on the agenda?
We tentatively have a meeting first week in April? No.
Well,
Yeah,
if there's
first
a-
Monday in April would be the next available meeting. It really will be dependent on when the revisions come in, so.
But get your work done, get it submitted to us, and we'll get you we'll get a meeting called specifically for this if this is what we need to do. We will not arbitrarily hold you up.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, can we have a motion to table?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Motion approved.
Brian, do we have to specify all this stuff in a tabling motion, or we just simply say table?
Entirely up to you, Mr. Chair. I
recommend.
do have a list of notes. If you want to include it, we certainly can. I can go through them. Or if you just want to defer, and we can, between Ross and I, we can work with Mario and Bob.
We have had a really good discussion on this tonight. I think it should be in the record.
Sure.
So
Yes.
would you run through all of it?
Yep.
And then we'll make a motion.
Yep. So I do have, this could probably be addressed with a note: repair of the waste receptacle enclosure. I would just like to see a note on the plans. Add architectural design feature to the north building facade. Increase the buffer zone on the north side to 20 feet minimum. Provide parking calculations for the existing site. Correct the property line to the south on the site plan. Add a shield to the light fixture on the east facade, and then essentially a landscape plan that will better depict tree preservation with new plantings incorporated as needed.
You addressed the roof issue on the north side of the building as to John Schweikert's comments, concerns?
He indicated facade as
Yeah,
opposed
he
to
did.
roof. So.
Okay.
But the intent is the roof.
Yeah, I know I didn't write them down, Mr. Chair, I apologize. I know there were a couple comments about maybe some more detail on the roof drainage, maybe was kind of where that was headed.
There were two. The point was to have architectural features on that roof, so it isn't a bare roof for 120 feet.
Gotcha.
Architectural features similar to what's on the opposite side, and to put on the plan, you know, until the engineers can conform it, show an underground line that runs to a storm sewer, so that the neighbor, when we approve it, knows the neighbor is not going to get flooded.
So how about like a conceptual drainage plan,
Yes,
something like that?
exactly.
Is that
That's all
fair?
we need. Now, did we agree we're not putting in a parking count? Or we are?
No, he did.
Yeah, I asked her. I think it would be a good baseline for us to have. The reason we didn't really get into that was because there's a wash in parking. They were providing new what they were losing. So there was no loss of spaces. If there was a loss of spaces proposed, I would have asked for those calculations so we could know where we stood.
Okay, so
But-
let's put that in.
Yep, it's on the list.
You know, that's just general information we should have for any site plan.
Yep,
So,
it would be good information, absolutely.
I'd make a motion table pursuant to those terms and conditions set forth by the planner, so that those can be readdressed, as well as making sure, once the review's been completed, that they're placed back on the agenda as quickly as possible.
Board,
have a motion and support. Discussion. Call the question. All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. It is tabled per the specifications. Moving on, chair's report.
Discussion item. Master
Oh,
plan.
yeah, I'm sorry, I jumped past that. Master plan, next steps. You know, at the last meeting, we went through the action items, got them squared away, and the direction was for the officers to get together, work on the text, and then submit that back out to everybody to have to critique. And when we were hoping to be able to get comments back in time so that the executive committee could meet and finalize it, you know, prior to a meeting in April. So far, we have received input from Dan, and we're looking for anybody else that wants to make comments on that to please take a look at that material and somehow advise us in such a fashion that we can put these comments into our final thinking.
But just, I think it just maybe from a clarity standpoint, right? So the verbiage that we changed was all very clearly highlighted, if it was changed at all. So it's very easy to follow what was changed and what was not. Same thing from a comment standpoint, and then it really was meant to align with the new action items that are proposed. So it should be very straightforward to go and see what's, you know, A to B and determine whether you like it or not.
And in the big scheme of things, not much changed. So
In the big scheme of things, not much changed.
there's not that much to look at. So please take a look at that if you have some time. We'd appreciate it. Chair's report, Brian, any other things on the agenda at this point? Coming down the pipe?
Not at this point. Just a quick update. Master plan obviously has been taking up a lot of your time, a lot of Ross's time. We have not forgotten about the chicken ordinance, just to make sure everybody's aware. We are still working on the updated draft and the revisions to address the comments that have been provided. So I think Ross is really pushing to have something for you guys to look at and comment on next month. Whether that would be available for the first meeting with the need to turn this site plan around very quickly, I don't know yet, but that's our goal. So you will be seeing a revised version of that in the relatively near future.
How could we ever forget the chicken ordinance?
I tried, Mr. Chair, but Ross wouldn't let me, so.
Bad luck. Okay. I don't see anybody in the audience, so there's no public comment. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.